So let's go ahead and get started. Now, as a homework follow-up, last week the goal, we talked about affirmations. And your goal was to get all your affirmations set up, and that's going to really come into play today if you're on track with me as far as doing your homework goes. If you're not doing your homework, then please make some notes and do your homework. Now, I've had a lot of comments come in over time that people can't write their notes fast enough, and so they want me to email the whole PowerPoint presentation out to them, and I do not do that. So some folks have recommended Jing software, J-I-N-G. It's free. You can do quick screenshots of everything, and that's a real simple way for you to take notes. So last week you were supposed to do your affirmations. Basically, if you weren't here with us, what that means is that you're supposed to take a little bit of time right up front, and actually if you did it right, it probably took you more than a little bit of time, but you're supposed to take some time to determine what it is you really valued in life, okay? Once you have that down, we can move on further and make some goals, but that's going to be kind of the framework that we're building off of here. Now, my quote that we're using today is, and this is one of my favorite quotes of all time, from the book that we're basing the class off of today. Great people have a vision of their lives that they practice emulating each and every day. They go to work on their lives, not just in their lives. Now, folks, there's a lot of people out there in the world that they wake up every morning, they hit the alarm clock, it's the same time, they've got to be to work at the same time. So they go in and they punch a clock, they punch out again, and they really don't have a lot of reasons to build their life resume, we'll call it, as far, working on their lives, not just in their lives. They go do their job, they come home, hang out with friends, family, whatever it is they do. With us, being self-employed in real estate, we have to always be building our skills. If we're not, we're falling behind because our competition is building their skills. And so if we just sit there, if we're complacent, if we're not always focusing on self-improvement, then we become obsolete. And so I really like this quote because being a real estate agent, yeah, there's a little bit of pressure there, and sometimes a lot of pressure, let's be honest. But that's what it takes to become a great person. We all have it within us to become this great person. And so we're going to go to work on our lives, not just in our lives. We don't just have a job to do. We have a person to build, this ideal person that you thought of and have this vision of now from your affirmations. So let's go to work on building that person. All right, the E-myth. He starts out with this little story, fat guy versus the skinny guy. And he does this because most all of us can relate to the feelings of being a fat guy and a skinny guy, okay? Now, whether you're a girl or not, I mean, this is just his example. So we're not really talking about fat people or skinny people. We're talking about the way you feel, all right? So let's look at his example in here. In the book, The E-myth, by Michael Gerber, he talks about the skinny guy. Now, when we feel like the skinny guy, and again, this has nothing to do with your weight, but when you feel like the skinny guy, you have this, it's almost a compulsive nature, okay? You make these really high goals. You've got a lot of discipline. You're very focused on what your diet, the things that you're willing to eat. You're very rigorous with your exercise. You also become a little bit intolerant and self-righteous because you'll see all these people around you eating their chocolate cake, and don't they realize how bad that is for them? And, ooh, that cheeseburger just looks nasty and all this stuff. And this is how you feel when you have this skinny guy mindset. We've all had it, whether we're fat or skinny, it doesn't matter. We've all felt this way at a certain point in our lives, okay? Then we've also all felt this way, where it's cold outside, it's raining, we feel overwhelmed, so I'm just going to get this bucket of ice cream and watch my favorite TV show, okay? So what he says in this book and what he wants us to understand is that both of these emotions, the emotions of the fat guy and the skinny guy, reside within us all the time. One of them tends to be dominant, okay? And they're not dominant forever. Okay, it's very rare. In fact, with most successful diets, if I go back a page here, with most successful diets that I've seen, they give you what's called a cheat day, where one day a week you can have a break because they know that you need to let the fat guy out every once in a while and just relax, or else a lot of people will break and they'll go on this massive binge. but they know that if you're really structured and rigorous about your schedule and stuff, that you have to give yourself a little bit of a break, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is, and that's where the fat guy comes in. So he's got this quote in here. He says, when you're the skinny guy, you're always making promises for the fat guy to keep, and when you're the fat guy, you're always making promises for the skinny guy to keep. One of them has to lose, and they both know it. And so again, with successful diets, what they do is, rather than saying one of them has to lose and they both know it, with a successful diet, the skinny mentality rules for 6 days of the week, and the fat guy gets 1 day a week, right? And that way they both live jointly, side by side. What we want to take away from this is that in order to find something successful for us, we have to find balance in our life. And that's what the EMyth is really about. It's not a diet book. The EMyth is the myth that being an entrepreneur will solve everything. So basically, and I'll give you an example here really quick, but just because you can do your job better than your boss can do your job doesn't mean you can do his job better than he can. And what about your boss's boss? Did you consider that? So one of the examples he draws out in the book is an example of a bakery. Let's say that I'm a baker in a bakery, and I've got a manager, but it's part of a big chain like Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. It's part of a big chain, and there's a CEO off somewhere as well. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm the one that makes all the donuts. People love this place because of how good my donuts are. And yet I'm getting this barely above minimum wage salary while my manager makes more than me, and he couldn't make a donut to save his life. In fact, I don't even know what he does here. Half the time, he just seems to get in my way. And then we're giving a whole bunch of our profit to the corporation, and that doesn't make any sense. They've never done anything for us. And so I'm going to break off, and I'm going to open my own donut shop because, after all, that's what drives this business. I'm going to make my own donut shop. This place is going to miss me so much, they're probably going to fold and go out of business in just a matter of weeks. And so this guy breaks off. He's bought into the EMyth. The idea that because he is the baker, and it's a bakery that's being run there, what's a bakery without a baker? And so he's going to leave and open his own bakery. Now, a couple things happen that probably surprises him. First of all, his old bakery does not go out of business. They just hire a new baker and they keep on running smoothly. But the other things that surprise him is that, first of all, there's a lot of things he didn't even understand. There's a lease that he's got to get, and he doesn't understand how to do leases, and so he signs a very poor lease. And there's bills that have to be paid, and there's city ordinances and stuff that have to be kept, and he didn't understand any of this, and so he fails and goes out of business. And this is, folks, why we have a 90% turnover ratio with small business owners. Now, interestingly enough, when I read this book, I thought that was a direct correlation to real estate. We have almost a 90% turnover in real estate as well. And a lot of agents keep their license, but they never close deals, so they might as well be out of business. But it's really the top 10% of the agents that are doing 90% of the business. And that is directly in line with what the EMyth is talking about. So, for example, I got into this business because I dealt with a real estate agent. It was a limited agency situation, and I didn't know he was representing me as a buyer until I got to closing and saw the HUDs. Now, I had been in the lending business, so I knew how to read the HUD settlement statement, and I saw there that he's getting a buyer agent commission. And I'm like, wait a second, we didn't have an agent. And they said, oh, yeah, you did. See, here's a little form you signed. And sure enough, there was an exclusive buyer-broker agreement form snuck in the midst of all the other paperwork that we had signed. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. This guy never did anything for us. We didn't get a single call from him from the time that we submitted our offer until closing time. And this guy's making a commission off of us? I can do better than this. And I bought into the EMyth, and I got into real estate. Now, I had no training. You guys have probably heard my story before. I've had no training. The company didn't offer any training. They took it was a 60-40 split, so they took 40% of everything I closed and gave me nothing in return. And I would talk to the experienced agents, the guys closing a lot of business. They didn't want to share their secrets with me. I talked to the other people struggling like crazy, and they'd bought into all sorts of weird marketing programs that when I probed a little bit deeper, they were just barely breaking even with the transactions that they got versus the cost of the marketing program. And I just thought, this is crazy. And so although I could provide better service than that guy, he had a couple things dialed in that I didn't know about. And 8 months in, I was struggling to the point where I was considering going out of business. That's the EMyth. So how do we fix this problem? And the answer is, going back to the fat guy, skinny guy, you understand that there are 3 competing roles. Instead of just 2, like the fat guy and the skinny guy, in business we have 3. There's the entrepreneur. Excuse me, I should have muted that. I'll do that now. There's the entrepreneur within us, and this is basically the CEO. He has the big picture. He's running the show. Then there's the manager, more local, more focused on events. And then there's the technician, the guy that hits the road and gets the job done. Now, just like he says with the EMyth, these roles are competing. And you will notice within yourself, as I go through and detail what these roles are for real estate agents, you'll notice that you tend to lean heavily in favor of one of the 3 roles, to the detriment of the other 2. Just like with the fat guy and the skinny guy. If I'm being the fat guy, it's directly in opposition to the skinny guy's goals. You know, I'm living slovenly and letting myself go, and that's not what the skinny guy wants. And at the same time, if I'm the skinny guy, then I never get time to relax and I reach a mental breaking period, which isn't really healthy either. So what we'll notice as we look at and examine these 3 competing roles is that each one of them has a space that must be filled in your business life, or you will fail in business. Okay? Now, I don't want to be a downer here, and I'm not trying to be negative for anybody. I'm just saying that you have to fill these roles or life is hard for you. Okay? Let's talk about the entrepreneur role first of all. Now, this is the dreamer. The CEO is the guy that has the vision of where the company's going. He's got the big picture. So this is the dreamer in all of us that looks at how things are and envisions how they could be. The part of us that asks, what if? The person that is always living in the future. And for most of us, this is why we got into real estate. It's because we had this vision of what we could create, of the great service that we could provide, etc., etc. So we see within us this huge potential, and it's there. And even if you've been beat up a little bit by the economy or by your competition, that potential is still there, and you can't lose sight of that, because a real true CEO would not lose sight of the potential that they have to take that market over. Okay? We feel and we act inspired, and in so doing, we inspire others. A great CEO is inspirational. He gets people to follow him. Now, I've got a quote here that I think applies to this in an amazing way. One of my favorites. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Let me share something with you folks. You might look at this and you might see a lot of similarities with the book The Secret, or if you go back even further in some of my other lessons we've talked about, where this goes back all the way to the Bible, all right, and in some cases even before that with wise men. This is not a novel idea, and yet it's something that we're so hesitant to commit to. Now, this is where your homework came in. If you did your homework and you created an affirmation, then you have made a commitment to yourself of the type of person that you're going to be. And no matter what happens in your life, no matter how many transactions fall through, no matter how many times your teenager back talks to you, or your neighbor's dog takes a dump on your lawn, there's going to be things that happen to you in your life. But no matter what happens to you, you are going to be true to yourself in creating this ideal person. Now, for me, part of that ideal person means being great in my career, all right? And so when I make that definite commitment to myself to become this person, then there's some amazing things that happen. When you definitely commit yourself, then if you read the book The Secret, then she calls it the universe, but the universe moves to help you, okay? And he talks about this here: a whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance. What I have found is that when you make that firm commitment, your eyes are opened. Okay, if I could go back to the Bible and do a little quote, they say all the time in there, "He that hath eyes to see, let him see, and ears to hear, let him hear." I think we're surrounded by opportunities every single day that we let slide by us because we are not committed enough to take advantage of them. And when we make that commitment, it's not like magically things appeared. They were already there. It's just all of a sudden we have the eyes to see them. And we have the boldness to go ahead and open our mouths and begin a discussion with this person. We have the boldness to get on the phone and call people that we know we've been needing to call for a long time. But this is all part of the vision that you've got to catch, and it's part of last week's homework. If you did last week's homework, you have accomplished, for the most part, the entrepreneurial role. You have a clear vision of where it is you want to go. If you didn't do last week's homework, then it's something that you'll want to do and definitely get caught up on. Next is the manager role. Now, this is the part of us that lives in the past, is fanatic about creating systems to organize everything that already exists. The manager plays a very different role than the CEO does, all right? So the manager feels an intense need to be organized. That includes managing your database. Now, I've been doing these group coaching sessions live here in Utah for a couple of years. And it's amazing to me that we have realtors come in that have been in the industry 7, 10, sometimes 20 years, and they do not have a working database. In other words, they have no place that they've stored all of their contact information that they refer to regularly and update their contacts information. They have nothing like that installed. Their manager role has taken a serious backseat, and their business is suffering for it, because a manager would get that stuff put into play. Upgrade your technology. This is a race that we're all running, trying to keep up with today's technological world. It's challenging, but for those agents that let this go, you know, I have agents that don't know how to work a fax machine or don't even have an email account, and they, you know, they did a lot of business 20, 30 years ago. But now their business has all but dropped off to maybe a couple friends that call them because they've let their skills become subpar. The manager also builds better presentations. I go out, my first listing presentation, you've heard this story probably, 2.5 hours long. I didn't win the listing even though it was my own neighbor. 2.5 hours long. My manager seriously needed to kick it into gear and build me a better listing presentation. Manager also recognizes when you're overwhelmed and you need to form a team or hire an assistant. All of these things are part of the manager's roles, and they play a very important part of the agent's daily business practices. And then the last role that we look at is the technician. This is the guy that gets it done, the doer. It's where the rubber meets the road. The person lives in the present, sees the past as behind him, and dreams of the future are a waste of time. Now, most technicians, they don't understand, if they're true technicians, they really don't understand the value of these roles, just like my story of the baker or donut maker. He doesn't understand why he gets paid just above minimum wage when the manager makes a bigger salary, and yet the manager covers a lot of skills that he doesn't see and probably doesn't even see as valuable. You know, anybody can rent space. Well, no, they can't. Not anybody can get a good lease. And so when he spurns those details, his business fails. You need to respect what the other ones do. But the technicians, a lot of times, if you're really heavy leaning on the technician side, you don't pay attention to these details. You like to get out and work, get your hands dirty. And yet your business will suffer and your work will be very difficult for you because these two roles are still very important. Now, on the other hand, let's go over what the technician does really quick before I get to the other hand. This is the guy, you know, you knock the doors, you're calling the for sale by owners, you're doing the regular and consistent follow-up with your existing clients or prospects or whatever. You get out, you network with local businesses. This is the technician. Now, just like with our fat guy and skinny guy, in the end, nobody triumphs over the others. If somebody does, if somebody wins and suppresses the other two, everybody loses. All right? If you become a really good door knocker, you can close some deals, but your business is going to be really hard because you don't ever get people into your database. You miss callbacks that you promised to make to people. You've got appointments that you miss because you can't get your calendars organized or because you lost it or something like that. There's agents out there that struggle with that every single day. They're really good at getting out and talking to people, but they're so disorganized that they're losing it all. Okay? If you're a really good manager and you've got a fantastic presentation and every day you just tweak it a little bit and you're always searching online for the latest tools and gimmicks and gadgets and things like that that will help you with your business, and yet you never get out and talk to people, you don't close very many deals. And as I mention these things, I hope you guys can see the real-life applications, because we're surrounded by real estate agents that struggle being top-heavy in one of these, and that's a clear example of nobody triumphing. They have to work together to win. So let me give you my recipe here in just a second, but I want you guys to do a quick self-analysis. And just for fun and feedback, so that those of us that are on here today can see what I'm talking about, how many of you, by raise of hands, and again, I would love to have everybody participate here. Nobody's going to be singled out. I don't really even pay attention to who's raising their hands where, but I'm just curious, and I'm going to give a statistic at the end, or a percentage, of where we lie in these different areas. But how many of you guys see yourself leaning most heavily on the entrepreneurial side? Okay, I'm going to lower the hands. We've got 28% of us see us leaning very heavily on that entrepreneurial side. How many of you see yourself spending the bulk of your time in the manager section? You're really attracted to that part of it. Wow, that's interesting. That surprises me. We've got 7% there. And how many of you say that the doer within you dominates? Okay, I've got 14%. So obviously not everybody's participating because those numbers don't all add up to 100%. But as you guys can see, and I just wanted to do that as an exercise so that you guys can see how it's kind of spread. And so everybody's different. And you'll see in other agents, you'll be like, man, that guy has it together. Look at how he gets out. He's not afraid of anybody. He'll talk to anybody. And yet when you get in and look at their volume, it's not so much, because they might have a strength in an area where you're weak, and so they seem a shining example to you. But you might in return be a shining example to them because you've got the sharp presentation skills, etc., etc. So what I want you guys to see is where you can improve your business by sharing the workload, excuse me, by sharing the workload between those three different personalities. We're going to do a quick breakdown of what you can do here. In order for your business to be successful, you need to break it down pretty similar to this. Okay, it's almost like a pyramid. Just like, interestingly enough, most corporations are structured like a pyramid. You've got one CEO at the top. Take Walmart, for example. One CEO, every store also has a store manager, and every store also has about 250, 300 employees. And so there's a lot of people. Most of the hours of Walmart are done by the workers, probably higher than 80%. But for our purposes, where it's all one person doing it all, this is what I recommend. So first of all, every morning, your entrepreneur pulls out your affirmations and makes sure that you're on the right track. He immerses himself in that feeling that you had when you made your affirmations the first time, and make sure that that's number one, that he still feels good about wanting to become that person. Sometimes as we grow and evolve, we make more enlightened goals. Okay, so this person that you envisioned Might change a little bit, but for the most part, it stays pretty consistent. So you need to make sure, first of all, that you have a clear vision of where it is you're heading and the type of person that you're becoming, okay? Get that clear vision every single day and take 5-10 minutes every day to review your affirmations. Make sure you're on the right track. Next, your manager steps in. Now, the manager is what we're going to be focusing the second part of our training today on. He's got the clear vision from the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur has passed down and said, this is what we want to do with our life. The manager then has to create systems, goals, and very trackable, detailed things that can then be passed along to the worker to implement. Okay, so the manager, 15% of your daily time. Now, what I recommend is every day taking about 15-20 minutes at the start of each day, plan your entire day out in advance. Now, you will get calls that you hadn't planned to do, but I recommend in my coaching program that you plan 20 calls out every day in advance, that you plan at least 5 activities that will move you forward towards becoming this person that your entrepreneur visions. Now, when you don't do this stuff, you become simply reactionary. You're waiting for everybody else to call you. You're running around like a chicken with its head cut off to everybody else's beck and call. You get to the end of the day, you're exhausted. You feel like you've done a whole lot, but if you were really pressed, you can't quite figure out what you've done because you didn't move forward with anything that was really important to you, but you did a whole bunch of stuff that was important to other people. And you get to the end of a year when that happens, and you find yourself in a very frustrating position because your life is not fulfilling for you because you're not becoming the person that the entrepreneur envisioned. Okay, and it comes down to the manager. Take time every day to plan your day out in advance. Now, as you get to the end of the day, the manager also reviews how things work. He's set up systems, he's set up databases. He wants to make sure that those things are working. And so every day, take 15-20 minutes at the end of the day and make sure that things ran smoothly. If you did a 2.5-hour listing presentation, then your manager will make a note that he needs to work on that. And then the next day, instead of maybe taking 15 minutes, he'll take an hour and get that presentation sharpened up. Okay? The manager also gets all your numbers in your database. And so if you're like me, I'm driving a lot. I'll have people text me or something, their contact information if I'm driving. I'll scribble down numbers on different notepads all over the place. We get free notepads from title companies, and I put them to good use personally. But my manager at the end of every day takes all of those notepads, gets all the phone numbers, he takes all the business cards that I've collected, gets all that contact information, and uploads it into my database, and then throws the sticky pads away. He gets my desk clean so that I can focus on what's most important. He gets the people that I'm supposed to call, their names, their phone numbers, and the time and date that I'm supposed to call them put into my database so that it auto-populates on that day, and I don't have to worry about, am I missing something? Wasn't there something I was supposed to do today? I can be at peace with myself because I've stuck to my system that the manager put into play for me. So the manager is going to take 15 to 20 minutes each morning, planning your day out in advance. About that much time again in the evening, doing a review of your day, getting contacts updated, that kind of stuff. And every once in a while, he'll need to take a little bit more time, maybe some time on a CE class, right? Sharpening the saw, so to speak. Making sure that you understand the new software, the new programs. Making sure that you understand a new state law. Okay, those are the kind of things that the manager has to do and has to stay on top of. I've just got a comment in here that says, what type of contact management system do you recommend? My favorite is RealtyJuggler. I'll type it in here. And I'll type that in and send that to everybody so that it shows up the way it's spelled. But just RealtyJuggler.com. Now, why do I like this system? First of all, it's simple. I've used pretty much every system there is in the past. You know, Top Producer. I've spent lots and lots of money on them. RealtyJuggler is simple. It does everything that I need it to do, and it does it without too many bells and whistles that are confusing for me. Each page has a little YouTube video that tells me how to use that page, but it does everything that I need, even for my team, okay, or for my assistant. It costs about $100 a year, not a month like some other programs have. Okay, so $100 a year, which is $8 a month, super cheap. And in fact, let me pause the screen and I'll give you a quick example. I'll show you RealtyJuggler here, so you can see why I recommend having a professional program. Okay, this is my RealtyJuggler page. When it opens up, everybody that I know, I get put into a contact. All right, so everybody comes into here, and I can sort them in different groups or whatever. But once I get a contact, in fact, let me open one up, and I'll just pick my title guy, who usually ends up being at the top of the list. Okay, so I've got my title guy in here, right? I've got all his contact information, and this gives me a great tool, and you'll also see some of my weakness here, so I'm opening myself up to you guys. But this gives me a good tool. So if you've taken my Sphere of Influence training, my goal with the Sphere of Influence is to build deep relationships with as many people as I can. My goal is around 500 people that I want to build a deep relationship with. For that, I need to know their birthday. So the next time I call Steve, I can say, oh, by the way, Steve, you know that I never found out what your birthday is? I like to give my people a card or give them a call or whatever I do on their birthday. And that gives me an excuse to call Steve. Now, I also have a goal based on my Sphere of Influence training that every 90 days I'm going to talk to people in my Sphere of Influence. So I've got a revolving task here. Every 90 days this pops up on my to-do list. So it'll be due in another, well, I've talked to him fairly recently. Okay. But when I pull this up, it gives me a chance to find out information about him, to record that information. I can record a date and time stamp my conversations with Steve, and then the next time I call and talk to him, I can quickly scan over, and if I see that he's been on vacation or if I see that he's been sick or his spouse, I can ask him about that, and that builds on my relationship that I have with him. Okay? So that's a quick example of that. Now, if Steve becomes a client of mine, I go here to transfer, and Steve's going to become a buyer, a listing, whatever. And then I've got a whole bunch of automatic tasks that automatically apply to Steve the buyer or Steve the new listing. Okay? So I'm going to go back here. But anyways, I've got a chance. I'll go back to my main page. I've got a chance here to track, my lock boxes, buyers, my listings, closings, every step of the way, and they've all got different things associated with them. So as a manager, this becomes vital to me. All right, having all of this information in one spot is vital to me as a manager. So let me go back to our presentation here. So 15% of my time is spent managing. Oh, by the way, if you end up going to RealtyJuggler, a couple more things about it is they'll give you 3 months free, a three-month free trial period. They don't collect your credit card information or anything. If you like the program after 3 months, and by the way, it's fully functional. It's not like some skimpy test version. Fully functional for 3 months for free. If you like it then and you sign up, but if you put my email address down, the eric.lee@equityutah.com, if you do sign up, they'll give you another 2 months free. So anyways, if you're from another office and you refer another realtor to it, you get yourself a whole bunch of free time. So anyways, I like the program. So here's the deal. We've got every day reviewing our affirmations. Oh, somebody wants me to type my email in here. Okay, so I just typed that in so everybody should be able to see that, my email address. So every day we're reviewing our affirmations. We're making sure that we have a clear vision of where we're going. Our manager then develops clear, defined tasks that will get us there, plans every day out in advance, putting those tasks down on paper, and hands it off to the worker who goes out and spends 80% of our day getting those tasks done. These are the money-making activities, but just like the baker, if you neglect the manager and the entrepreneur, man, you got a rough life, whether it's this business or any other. Now, let's go on to some of our manager's functions here. Okay. For the rest of our training seminars, we focus primarily on the technician, how to do for sell-by-owner calls, how to work your sphere of influence, a lot of technician-related stuff. As far as the manager goes, this is mostly it, okay? We want to make sure that we're breaking down the vision that we have from the entrepreneur within us into small, daily, easily tangible tasks, okay? So we're going to take time to set goals for our business. We're going to break our goals down from yearly goals to daily goals. We're going to make sure that they apply to this SMART acronym, which I'm going to give you in just a minute, and we're going to track them, all right? We're going to make sure we're going to follow up with ourselves. How did we do on this goal? All of this is part of your becoming a good manager of your business. So let's look at this goal here. I will lose 15 pounds this year. This is a pretty common goal that people have. I'm going to lose a little bit of weight this year. I'm going to get in better shape. All right? Now, the problem with this goal is nobody ever hits it. And there's a lot of problems associated with this goal. So, first of all, if you talk to some of the gurus out there, they say this word lose in here has a negative connotation. And so when I read this goal, I will lose 15 pounds this year, that actually comes across negative to me. And I feel negative about this goal. And so I'm not going to accomplish it because of that reason. But there's lots of other problems. Let's look at our acronym and see how we can fix that goal. It's a very common one, and I'll show you how it applies to real estate here as well. But here's our SMART acronym. Now again, this is my own version. If you've heard this in school before, this is where I got it, was from college, but I changed the A out. I didn't like their A. I made my own to make it work. So every goal that I have, it needs to have these 5 characteristics. It needs to be very specific. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be action-oriented. It needs to be realistic. And I need to have a time limit set on that. So let's see how we can apply the SMART acronym to this goal of I'm going to lose 15 pounds this year. First of all, I want to get rid of the lose in there. So I'm going to put I will weigh. I want to be very specific. I will weigh 185 pounds by December 31st, 2012. All right, specific, check. I've got that done. How am I going to measure it? I'm going to get on a scale. All right. Now, action. What am I going to do? I'm going to run 1 mile 3 times a week, cycle 10 miles 3 times a week, and I'm not going to eat fast food. Now, again, if I've got this vision of my ideal self that was handed down to me from my entrepreneur self, and it's this vision of somebody that's in shape, he's healthy, he's active, and he's got the energy to play with his kids, his grandkids, things like that. If that's my vision of myself, that's a great vision, but I need to have specifics that guide me throughout the day. So I've got some very good specifics here. I'm going to run 1 mile 3 times a week. I won't eat fast food. Very specific things to get me towards realizing that person. Is it realistic? Yes, it is for me. If I weighed 400 pounds, it might not be realistic. I'd need to do something a little bit different. Time. I'm going to weigh every week and month to make sure that I'm on track to hit my goal and I'm moving in the right direction. And as the manager, if I find that what I'm doing is not working, it's not moving me in the right direction, then I'm going to need to study a little bit more. I'm going to need to learn a little bit more. I'm going to need to tweak my system to get there. But here's the thing. When you do this, when you run your business this way, you cannot help but succeed. When you get a clear directive from the entrepreneur about what you want to accomplish, and then your manager breaks it down and applies this SMART acronym to it, you cannot help but succeed, because the manager takes very specific things and tells your technician, go do this today. Don't worry about the 15 pounds or you're going to weigh 185 or whatever. Go out today and run 1 mile. If you do that, technician, you've earned your pay for the day. You can go home, rest, and relax and have fun with your family. Okay? That's what you have to do to get paid today, Mr. Technician, is run 1 mile. See, the technician, that's the nice thing about him. He doesn't have to worry about this big picture. We spend 5 minutes in the morning worrying about the big picture, reviewing what our worker bees have done. Well, did our worker yesterday go out and run a mile? No, he didn't. Okay, that guy needs to be fired. We need to get serious about this. And mind you, I'm talking about yourself, all the different conflicting personalities within yourself. Okay? So the technician, his life becomes simple. Once he's got this clear directive, all he needs to do is go and do it. All right, I'm not going to eat fast food. If he eats fast food, he runs the risk of being fired by his boss. Those are his very simple instructions, and that's the secret to you accomplishing your goals. Break it down with this skill, make them simple, actionable items every day. For example, here's a real estate goal. I will earn $100,000 this year. So let's be more specific. I'm going to close 2 deals a month. The measurability of that, the homes are going to average around 150,000. That's typical marketplace for me, let's say. If I close 2 deals a month at 150,000, that's a $4,500 commission. Times 2 is $9,000 a month, times 12 months a year, and I've exceeded my $100,000 goal, right? I'm going to make 20 calls a day as far as my action items go. I will make 20 calls a day, set 3 appointments a week, and land 1 new client a week. That gives me a chance to have only a 30% success ratio with the appointments I set. I'll probably get better than that, but that's very realistic for me. Can I do 20 calls a day? That's the only question, is as my technician takes over this instruction sheet for the day, can he call 20 people a day? Folks, we're talking about $100,000. To put that in perspective, can you call 20 people a day? I've got a buddy I used to do mortgage loans with. Me and him, we used to sit side by side, different cubicles, and we would call 100 people every day. He's since moved on to a job as a recruiter for a college or something like that. He says he makes 150 phone calls a day. He does not earn $100,000 a year. Okay? He earns less than that. Why can't we, as full-time licensed professionals, commit to 20 calls a day? And yet when I make this challenge to most agents, they get real squeamish. They get real nervous because that's a huge commitment. Folks, it's not a huge commitment. Go out and get a quote-unquote real job with a boss looking over your shoulder. You'd get fired for only doing that much. Okay? This is something that we can do. All right? Now, we may be busy. If you've got a full-time job and you've only got a couple of, because I've coached people that have had, they're full-time students, they have a full-time job, and they have a family. 20 calls a day was going to be too much for them. But they can do 5 calls a day or 10 calls a day. And yet most agents that I talk to that are failing, that are going out of business, don't even average 5 calls a day. And yet they call themselves full-time agents. It's a clear breakdown of their manager role. They're doing something else to convince themselves that they're working very, very hard, yet the manager within them is almost non-existent. And so although they may be doing some real grueling work, because the manager role is non-existent, they're failing. They're part of that 90% statistic of people that fail because they don't understand the concepts in the EMyth, that they have to have 3 successful roles that any successful business has. They have an entrepreneur, a manager, and a technician that gets the job done. Okay, I've got a good comment that's come in here, and I do have time to address it, but it says, I know you may not be able to address this right now, but the big question for me is, who do I call for those 20 calls? That might be a lot of people for me to call. Let me take you back really quick to my RealtyJuggler program. Okay, who do I call for those 20 calls? Well, I have a goal of having a relationship with 500 people. And so if I go into my database of contacts right here, and this is one database, this isn't my email database, but I've got 410 people in here that I try to maintain an active relationship with. I've got about 2,600 people in my email database. I'm not calling them. They get email blasts occasionally, but I've got about 410 people right here. Now, my goal is to contact all of them a minimum of every 90 days. But of course, with a lot of those people, I'm going to be contacting them 2 or 3 times a week because I've got an active working relationship with them. With some of my business partners, I want to, and by business partners I mean some of the local businesses that I work closely with. I get a lot of referrals from them. those guys I'll probably want to call every single week. I'm going to have birthday calls that I need to make. You know, all of those things come up on my to-do list. I need to call the lender on this. I need to call an appraiser on this. All of those things are part of my 20 calls. It could also be, as part of my 20 calls comes up, it could be calling my CPA. Okay? Because that's part of managing my business, is I get my bills paid and I get my taxes paid. So it might not be a real estate call, but it's a call that's important to my business. I need to make sure my taxes are done right, so I need to call my CPA. So those are the 20 calls. Now, you may start out okay, so I've got a comment in here that I'll share from one of our agents. If you don't have a database of people you know, then you can get an account through groupcaller.com. They will get you a database of homeowners in your area, set you up with a predictive dialer account with the list. And so that's one way that you can do it. And I'll be going over trainings over the next several weeks. So thank you for sharing that idea, by the way. I'll be going over trainings over the next several weeks about how to build your database. If you want to get a database built up really fast, do a farm neighborhood, right? You pick 300 to 500 residences in that area, boom, you're done. You've got a big database of people that you can contact each day. You've got all the people that you know. We're going to be doing a training on sphere of influence. So all of these people, when you get into the habit of recording information rather than just handing out your business cards like it's candy and you're in a parade, get in the habit of gathering information. You build up your database, you start getting a lot of referrals. Is this realistic that I can make 20 calls a day? Yes, it is. Time I will review every week and every month, and honestly, if my manager's in play, I'm going to be reviewing every day my activities to make sure that I'm on track to hit my goal and I'm moving in the right direction. Got another quick little comment in here. The question is, how could you call your farm area? I understand names and addresses. How could I call my farm area? Well, if it's my farm area and you've attended my farm training, I recommend going out and getting personal with that neighborhood. Again, the whole idea of a farm, and we'll of course do a whole training on this, but the whole idea of a farm is that I dominate a certain geographic area. I believe that to dominate a geographic area, that requires my presence. And so instead of making phone calls, my contacts for that day, I'm going to go out and knock 10 doors a day or something like that. Okay, somebody else said, sorry for the naivete, but I don't know what you mean by farm area. For you, stay tuned. We will be giving a training on that in a couple of weeks, okay? I don't have time to do the whole thing right now, but we'll certainly answer your questions in the coming weeks. So for right now, make a list of your database. If you don't have people, that, if 20 calls a day means calling the same 20 people each day because you've got 20 people in your database, well, that right there is a clear indicator that first of all, your manager has suffered a little bit because you know more than 20 people. If you look in your phone, there's more than 20 contacts saved in your phone. All those people need to be gotten into a database and tracked. Pay attention to the things that you're saying to them. Record that information. That's part of building a relationship with people. It also might show you a lack of attention to the technician aspect, where you need to go out and meet more people. You need to be more diligent rather than just giving away cards, gathering information, gathering names, phone numbers, email addresses, getting those people put into your database so that you have those follow-up calls to make. So that is our training today. It's a lot of work. Take your, as far as homework goes, take your affirmations that you worked on last week, go over and make SMART goals to move you forward in each of those areas of your affirmation. That will give you the names of people you need to call. It will give you the tasks that you need to do on a daily basis. Those are the types of things that will move you ahead. If you don't have a database, get that set up, okay? Anyways, I do appreciate you joining me. We're actually going to end about 7 minutes early today. So thank you for your time, and if you have questions, comments, or if you have other topics that you would like additional training on, please email me at eric.lee@equityutah.com. That's eric.lee@equityutah.com. Thank you, and thank you for being part of Equity. Bye-bye.